everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the Macabre Podcast universe. I am your host, Micah McCaw.
I'm Jordan McCaw.
We are married, and guess what? This is the podcast that exists to prove people wrong when they say...
The sequels are never better than the originals.
than the originals.
Yeah.
And if you've been listening to us, or if you're new, welcome to the podcast. We've been covering Batman. But there's so much Batman and DC related to Batman that we had to go, okay, let's cover a chunk of Batman. So we covered the 80s and 90s of Batman. Now it's time to take a little break. Mm. But we still had an appetite for superheroes. But what we wanted, we didn't want...
We wanted something wholly original.
Yes, we did. And so we chose to cover M. Night Shyamalan's Eastrail 177 trilogy.
We're getting everything good. It's called the Eastrail 177 trilogy?
Yes, it is.
I didn't know that. I don't think I knew. I think I just call it the Glass trilogy.
I think most people just call it the Unbreakable movies.
Yeah.
But that is like that's the name of the trilogy, which is
very
cool.
Because that starts it all.
Yeah, and I just in case someone has not seen the other movies and would like a chance, I think I will refrain from kind of doing the spoilers of future movies for the most part until we get there.
Guys, if you're not familiar with Shyamalan, he's the king of twists. So if you haven't seen, if you haven't seen Split or even Glass, you have to watch them.
Yes, you do. And so this is what happened with him, M. Night. Mm-hmm. He makes this movie called Praying with Anger. And he makes it for little to no money. It's never seen a full, wide release. Then he makes something. Oh my goodness, I'm totally forgetting what it's called.
The Sixth Sense.
No, it's just funny because most people think of him as, he's this guy who his first movie was The Sixth Sense and his second movie was Unbreakable.
Yeah,
but that's not the case. So he makes Praying with Anger. Then 6 years later, he makes Wide Awake, which is has Rosie O'Donnell in it. And
cool.
That kind of gets him a bit of a start. But then he comes out with The Sixth Sense. And if you know anything about The Sixth Sense, I mean, that movie made a ton of money. I'm going to look up how much it made.
As you're looking it up, we recently listened to a very interesting episode of 99% Invisible. I think that's the name of the podcast. Okay. And they are kind of like Stuff You Should Know in a way, in terms of taking a topic that might not be super commonly known, or you're familiar with it, but you find out you're not. And they covered basically the history of film theaters, especially in the 90s, early 2000s? Well, no, it would be the 90s when AMC really got on the map. The company AMC created stadium seat theaters, which kind of did take the U.S. by storm, and I think by now the world, in terms of what a theater experience is. Mm-hmm. And probably the most interesting thing to me out of that episode was them talking about what movies came out during that time.
Yeah, because 99 is a year in movies that people often argue is the greatest year for movies ever.
Yeah, and one of those movies was The Sixth Sense, and they also reference Quentin Tarantino and someone else I couldn't remember that's really big movies. Yeah. That's just you had these really ambitious filmmakers, and maybe if this theater boom didn't happen, maybe it would have taken them longer to become so big. But because of it was kind of just all the perfect ingredients for people like Spike Jonze, Quentin Tarantino, Shyamalan.
Yeah.
And that's.
So you had Being John Malkovich, Star Wars Episode 1, The Matrix.
Yes.
Is that the year No, not Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction's 92, I think. Yeah. Or 94.
Man on the Moon, Sleepy Hollow. Not that those two are necessarily the height of cinema, but I mean, they are very popular movies.
Theaters got bigger physically, therefore they were showing more movies, and movies like this, well, not Unbreakable, but like The Sixth Sense was just seen by more people, and it's a crazy movie with a crazy twist. I mean, it's objectively good. We didn't need a big boom in theaters to it would have been discovered either way, but he became a household A-list director very quickly compared to how it is now or how it was before, right before that.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting to me because, as we've talked about on this podcast before, Shyamalan has one of the most fascinating careers.
He does, and I think we will let's just bring him up to Unbreakable, and then the next episode we can take him to Split.
Sure.
Because I think we've actually covered it on this podcast, but we can definitely refresh it. It's just very interesting because he's this new guy kind of on the scene, and Sixth Sense. So I looked it up, and it made actually I lost the note I was looking up because I got
made a lot of money.
So it made $672.8 million on a $40 million budget.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, it's huge. So he goes to Walt Disney and he says, I want to give you a first look deal on my next picture. And so they, for a spec script, which is not a finished script, it's just like, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's just like, here's my idea, here's some of the stuff that's going to happen.
That's my understanding of it, yeah.
So he does that, and Disney's like, okay, here's $5 million. And then they're like, we'll pay you $5 million to direct it. So right off the bat, he's like, good to go. And so they're going to release it under Touchstone. So this is technically under the Disney branch, this movie.
He was a Disney person for a little bit.
Yeah, he was. But he was under their adult entertainment.
Yes.
Not that kind of adult entertainment.
No. Just movies for adults.
Yeah. So
it doesn't really change the meaning.
But so he's getting ready to make this movie, and he has this idea about, kind of reflecting upon comic books and what would it be like.
He had this idea before Marvel movies, people.
That's the thing. So I watched this interview, this like Q&A with him in the year 2010. So it'd be 10 years after Unbreakable.
Yeah.
But before Split or Glass. And it was very interesting because he said that when the movie came out, it was not a hit.
Oh, okay.
And people were like, we don't like this.
Do you think it would have been a hit today if it came out?
So, yes.
Is that what they talk about, the Q&A?
Well, that's one of the things he said.
Yeah.
I think that this movie is like...
It's a perfect movie.
It's like 20 years ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of movie
it is. He's made a lot of movies that feel very ahead of its time. I just got to say, I don't know if we've said this before on the podcast, but a year or two ago, you and I were like, is Shyamalan a good director? We need to figure it out because we know that he's made good movies, but he went through a really, really terrible period right before Split where
which we'll talk more about next week.
Which we will, but where people were just like, no, he's a hack.
Yep.
He did After Earth. He's a hack. And then you find out you find out what After Earth was, but so then you and I watched a lot of his movies. We still need to watch After Earth and Avatar. No wonder we're having trouble watching the worst two movies he's made.
And the two he made before Signs.
Yes.
I haven't seen those, but
those
are the only four we haven't seen.
Yeah, and so, but when you and I were watching it, we came to a pretty unanimous consensus that it's like, no, he is amazing. He's great.
Yeah.
He is one of the masters with the camera. Like, just watching this movie last night, he's like up there on one of my favorite directors.
Absolutely. And there is this idea when you're first getting into movies where it's sort of devastating when a director you're getting into has any bad work because you want to think they can't do anything wrong. But it's just like any artist,
But that's what's so like I think that's what makes me like him a lot too, because he does go through that period where people start calling him Spielberg, and that got in his head, and he got a huge head. And then he did some pretty bad stuff, like made bad movies, I mean. And it's like, no, you can't do everything you want. You have to take out a second mortgage on your home to make some movies. That's all I'm saying. We'll talk about it more. But like the risk, it's kind of like Tim Burton. The risk was taken away from him at a point in his career. And there wasn't a lot, he didn't have a lot to lose besides his reputation,
But all of that to say, so he makes The Sixth Sense, and it has this amazing twist. It's probably the most famous twist in a movie ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And everyone loves it. I have not met a person who doesn't love that movie. Like, you just like it. So he's getting ready to do this movie, and while yes, there is a twist in this movie, it's not a
Sixth Sense twist.
No, it's not like it does change your viewing of the movie when you see it in the future, but it's not like Sixth Sense where like if you watch it again, it is a different experience than if you didn't know.
Yes.
But so Disney was like, we want to market this as a psychological thriller.
Oh, interesting.
And he said, no, we need to market this as a superhero movie.
Yeah. I get the...
They marketed it as a psychological thriller.
Okay. I get the temptation to market it that way.
I do. And you can get those shots and stuff. Like, I could see how a trailer would be edited and look that way.
And it's kind of a slow burn.
It is. But, so I think people were going to the theater going, okay, what's the thing that's going to turn all this on its head? And when they get to the end and Elijah is, like, monologuing about being a supervillain, you're kind of like, oh, this is not like The Sixth Sense. Because it's not. So the movie, it's still, I'll report on the numbers in a second. It still like makes money, but I think when you put it up against Sixth Sense, everyone's like, oh, well, this is a big disappointment.
Okay.
But another thing to remember is that you had an X-Men movie come out this year.
Okay.
And you had like Blade before this, maybe a couple other superhero movies, but Spider-Man comes out in 2002. So superheroes are not the cultural norm.
No.
Which is kind of interesting because this movie is so much reflecting on what mythologies of superheroes are that I could see, if you were not into comic books, I could see someone watching this and just being like, I don't really... Like, I understand the story, but I don't get it.
I think if Marvel, the MCU wasn't a thing, I don't know if this movie would be as impactful for me. But just to talk about the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I laid eyes on a part of the movie, as most listeners know, I think I have seen most movies on TV. But it was on TV, and I think it was I remember it being the last shot of the movie with Elijah and David Dunn talking, and the big reveal. And I asked my dad, what is this movie about? And he said it's about superheroes, like they're superheroes or something. But I'm watching and I'm like, it's not though. Because at this point, there have been Marvel movies and there's no fighting, there's no exploding, it's just like very dramatic. But so from my memory, it's Elijah's doing his monologue and then David's realizing all those newspaper clippings. And I'm like, what is this? This is so cool. And then I finally watched the movie. And it was just perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I saw it, I got it from the library, and I actually knew it as a movie with a big twist, like on a list of movies that have big twists. And I watched it, and I think as far as twists go, I think I was slightly underwhelmed because of that kind of expectation.
Yes.
But I thought it was a really good movie.
Yes.
It was just...
it is a twist.
It is a twist, but it's like, I feel like it's wrong to market it as a twist, So even putting it on lists of like movies with a crazy twist ending, it is a crazy twist ending, but I think it's a little better to just experience it. And so I watched it, loved it, and then, there's so much I want to talk about with the next two movies.
I know,
but I want to hold off because this is our series right now.
Yeah, if you haven't even seen this one, and you were aware of Split, this is already a spoiler.
Yeah. But, Split's been out since 2016, so it's your bad at this point.
It's just, I bet that people who didn't see Split were just like, and hadn't seen any of them or whatever, were just like, how is this movie 20 years later supposed to connect to this movie?
It's so funny because I just remember seeing Glass and talking to some people at the Rogue Air Park where I worked, and they saw Glass and they were like, I don't like it at all. Like, that was a stupid movie. And I was like, have you seen Unbreakable? And they're like, no.
Oh my gosh. Well, I get it though, but
yeah, I do get that you have to do homework, and sometimes I don't like that about movies, but folks, we're gonna get into it. Glass is a masterpiece.
Because of Marvel, for your homework to only be one movie, that's not really homework. That's that's a bonus for you. I mean, how do you get to the end of Split, and you obviously didn't understand what was going on?
Yeah.
And then you thought, oh, maybe I guess it's connected to this thing, and then you just don't watch it?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
But like with WandaVision coming out, and a lot of people have Disney Plus, a lot of people who haven't even seen most of the Marvel movies, that's homework. Because they're watching that show and are
Avenger
like,
movies.
I like this, but who are these people?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you have to minimum watch 4 Avengers movies,
Yes.
but if you really want to understand it, you have to watch like 3 or 4 more beyond that.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, I feel like they've earned that right to do that.
Yeah. No, I'm not complaining about it.
The thing I always say when people are interested in Marvel and I really like something that's coming out is I'm like, you can dive in, and I would encourage you to do it, but if you don't want to, it's kind of like you either do it or you don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I
It's
feel
like a New Year's resolution at this point for people.
well, and it's kind of like, I mean, if we're 20 movies in and and the last or the second to last movie that came out made the most money any movie's ever made, you're probably into it already.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in like trying to explain to you what you need to do unless you just don't care. But let's talk about this some more. So the music is by James Newton Howard.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about him before.
Yeah.
But most recently, we went and saw Raya and the Last Dragon.
Yeah.
And the score to that movie was so good.
Yeah. I
was really happy with that. And the whole movie, I'm just like, who in the world did this score? Just kind of jamming in my seat. Mm-hmm. And then, sure enough, it was Howard. James Newton Howard, that is. And then the cinematographer is someone we've talked about before. And we've talked about him for 2 movies. His name is Eduardo Serra, and he did the 2 Deathly Hallows movies. Deathly Hallows, Harry Potter.
Okay. And those movies look great.
Yeah, those are maybe my favorite looking of the movies. I mean, Deathly Hallows 1 is my favorite of the Harry Potter. Yeah. So, and he really captures
They do look
vibe.
The best, yeah.
But, oh my gosh, how do you even have a discussion about the cinematography in this movie?
Perfect.
In the interview the Q&A I was watching, he was saying how kind of insane, because he was watching the movie with the audience, and then they did a Q&A 10 years later, and it was in Philadelphia, of course. And
of course, the only city that exists for them.
And he said, it is kind of crazy because you have these scenes and shots like there's a shot when Bruce Willis meets Sam Jackson, and it's just through a window, and they're talking. And he's like, that's kind of a crazy thing to have 2 stars as big as Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis, and you don't even have close-ups. Yeah. And he's saying, we only shot that. We didn't shoot extra coverage. This movie is like what we shot. There are 15 minutes of deleted scenes, which will come into play a little bit later on this series we're covering.
But of some of the deleted scenes that have been repurposed, they're not other angles of same shots.
No, they're
some of them
new
are
scenes.
Scenes that just weren't used.
So it's just it's so good. And I think for the most part now people are like, oh, this is a great movie. And I think it helps that we have all of these superhero movies. Yeah. So this movie feels like a commentary on those movies, even though none of them had been made yet.
I know. How crazy is that?
So then let's say this movie came out November 21st in the year 2000. And it had a budget of $75 million, and domestically it only made $95. So it didn't do well here. And then worldwide it made $248.
Yeah, not even close to The Sixth Sense.
No, but in my head, I'm like, that's still pretty decent.
It is, but obviously there was a lot of expectation.
Yeah. So this is funny because we've covered enough movies now that we have all these connections. So Julianne Moore was going to star in this in the role of Robin, right?
Uh-huh.
But she dropped out so she could be Clarice in Hannibal.
Wow.
And I could see her in this movie, but
I
really like Robin Wright's performance.
Yeah.
Who is billed as Robin Wright Penn.
Yeah.
Which I forgot / maybe I didn't know that she had taken Sean Penn's last name when they were married.
Mm-hmm.
That's always interesting when an actress actually takes the actor's last name.
I know.
Let's see. So then this is the last I have. After the film's release, there were rumors of sequels on fan sites, and it'd be brought up in interviews. And in 2000, Willis said he was hoping there'd be an Unbreakable trilogy. So obviously
he said trilogy. He's like, I'm signed up for 2 more.
Well, I think that must be like, okay, that's meaning him and M. Night are talking about stuff, probably. Yeah. And then in December of 2000, Shyamalan, he said, no, there's not going to be other movies. But then in August of 2001, he said because of the DVD sales, he had approached Touchstone about a sequel, and they were like, no, your movie didn't make enough money for a sequel. And then in 2008, Shyamalan and Samuel L. Jackson said that they were kind of discussing a sequel, but with the disappointing box office, they just weren't really sure. Mm-hmm. And then in 2010, Willis said that Knight was still thinking about doing the fight movie between me and Sam that we were going to do, and stated that as long as Jackson was able to participate, he would be up for it. So, very interesting.
Yes.
Setting the stage. And I think people who were fans of this movie really wanted a sequel for a long time.
Yeah.
So this has always been kind of one of those, I think this kind of goes in the category of, you just go like, man, if only they could have ever done that movie. I just would have liked to have seen that. And especially because when M. Night first wrote this, he wanted to do a traditional, like, hero gets power, hero has troubles, hero succeeds. And then as he was writing it, he was like, okay, this whole movie is just one act of a comic book.
He probably was just writing it, was like, there's too much to explore. Because he made David Dunn's, like, just family life character, all of it, just way too fascinating.
He did.
He made him a real person.
Yeah, so...
I think he made Elijah a real person, too.
Everybody's real.
So much time was spent.
Yeah, so that's what I have on the movie.
Okay. We have not covered Bruce Willis.
I don't know what we could have covered him in.
Well, we haven't covered Die Hard yet.
And maybe we should.
So he's John McClane, obviously. He's also in The Sixth Sense. He's in Pulp Fiction, Looper. I mean, it's Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Full stop. And then Robin Wright, Forrest Gump, The Princess Bride. She's in the Zack Snyder Justice League.
Is?
I guess.
Oh, man. Sorry.
I think she's in Wonder Woman.
By now,
she's in Wonder Woman 84.
Oh, yeah, she is.
Okay, but also House of Cards. She's in Blade Runner 2049. I mean, I think a lot of people still would recognize her from The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
But she's in so much stuff. She's great. She's always amazing.
Yeah, she is.
And then Spencer Treat Clark plays the son, Joseph. He's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Mystic River, Gladiator, Criminal Minds, Do No Harm. Looks like he's just been in a lot of TV. A lot of his career has been more TV than movies. Yeah. He's done a lot. And then Charlene Woodard plays Elijah's mother.
Yeah.
She is in The Crucible, Hair, Prodigal Son, let's see, Sneaky Pete, Blacklist, a lot, just all the TV shows, literally all of them. Bones, Law and Order, Medium, ER. That's literally all of them.
She's so nuts. Again, I don't want to get too much into Glass, but it is crazy when you watch Glass because I think your brain just forgets. Oh, well, I'll speak for myself. My brain forgets that she's not an old woman in Unbreakable, but they age her up at the end of the movie.
Sam Jackson's older than her.
Yeah.
By years.
Yeah. And so then you're watching Glass and you're like, how'd they get an actress to look exactly like her? And it's like, oh, now she's the age that she would be in this movie.
Uh-huh.
What?
Uh-huh.
But I mean, yeah, we can't get into that yet. But
that's pretty much it, though. It's a pretty small cast. I mean, of course, there are other people in it, but it's a pretty small cast.
It is, yeah. And it's got 3 actors from
House of
Cards in it. The guy with the gun and the camo, he's in House of Cards. And then the doctor after the train accident is in House of Cards.
And Robin Wright.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Goes without saying. So, this movie. It's like... Here's another thing for our podcast listeners. When we first discussed this podcast and we were kind of going, what do we want to do? This was one of the series that we were most excited to cover because I think Glass came out we'd been doing this podcast for a little bit, but we already knew they were making it. So we were like, oh, it'd be so cool to cover Unbreakable once that movie comes out. So this is kind of like a moment for Jordan and I to finally talk about this movie that we love.
Yeah.
Which I will say is my favorite M. Night movie.
Yeah.
I think I love it so much. So the movie starts, and in the first shot of the movie, well, first of all, this movie has like the longest shots in the world.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching There Will Be Blood or something in a city because the camera just sits there and it pans back and forth for conversations without cutting. I mean, you're like 10 minutes into the movie and there's been like 10 shots, maybe. Like, it's so insane.
Yeah.
So the movie starts and it says it's a department store in, I think, the 60s.
It first has a lot of facts about comic books.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Just about how many comic books are sold, basically proving how popular they are. Then we're in a department store in the 50s, I believe, in Philadelphia. This is this proves M. Night as a master of suspense.
Yeah.
But a lot of the scene is shot like through reflection. We're seeing the reflection.
There's a mirror, and so there's this. So Elijah's mom gives birth to Elijah, Mr. Glass, Samuel L. Jackson, and a doctor comes in, and whenever the doctor speaks, the camera looks at him. But whenever she speaks, whenever the mother speaks, the camera looks at her. But then when it's the doctor, it'll pan up, and then you're seeing him through the mirror. Now remember, his name is Mr. Glass.
And the theme of the series, like all of the movie covers, have glass on them.
Yes. And they all have something to do with breaking. Because like split personality, glass, unbreakable.
Yeah.
So, which for the art, we need to just do our logo, but with like cracks through it. That would be cool. But I think I cut you off. So.
So by master of suspense, she had just given birth and there was a doctor that happened to be in the department store, so he's attending to her while an ambulance is coming. And he takes the baby to look at, and the baby's crying a lot, and it's just all the scary stuff is just told through dialogue and facial expression. We're not actually seeing anything, and that's so much scarier than if they had shown it, because the mom is asking, should he be crying like that? And then the doctor is looking at him and he like loses expression.
His acting, get out of here.
Incredible.
Get out of here.
And he's asking like, did the baby fall? Did someone drop the baby? Did something happen to the baby when it was born?
What are you talking about?
And the mom is just getting more confused and more worried. And he is telling her like something is wrong with your baby. Like when you were pregnant, something was wrong because its arms and legs are broken. And she just starts crying. I get chills just like talking about it and remembering it. It is so chilling.
Okay, so and this leads into a thing. So as M. Night was coming up, he was always likened to the next Spielberg, because I think, we cite things as like this director kind of ruled this decade or whatever.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the next Spielberg? That's always the thing. And I know that M. Night is very inspired by Spielberg and Lucas and stuff like that. But I just see that he is such a, like, I don't know if proto is the right word, but he is just like the son of Alfred Hitchcock in my brain.
Oh, yeah.
Like his movies are so Hitchcockian. And especially Split.
Yeah.
But this movie, like the way, and throughout his whole career, the way he just will make things unsettling for you or scary. And when you actually watch the scene, I always remember the beginning of this movie as you see the baby. I always remember seeing it.
Yeah.
You don't see the baby.
Yeah.
That's how much of a picture he creates without you even seeing the child. It's his use of sound and the use of the camera and the acting to where every time I go, oh yeah, this shot's really rough. And that's what I always think.
And it's great with such long shots, because when you have cuts, it's almost as if your brain is refocusing on something when there's a new shot. And because there's a lot of just long shots, it's like you're there. It really does feel like you're there. And I think that's a big reason for the use of long shots, is it feels real. And it's like he is making a comic book come to life. That being said, a lot of the shots look like comic book panels, though.
Yeah, there's a device where things are framed as if you were looking at a page and this is one of the panels.
Yes.
So it'll be a hallway, or even like the train scene that we're going to talk about next.
When they were talking at the football stadium and they were perfectly framed in bars.
yeah.
It's just like, get out of here. It's ridiculous.
It's definitely like, I would put it like probably in my top 10 personal like favorite looking movies.
Oh yeah. I mean, he is such an artistic director for being so mainstream. Even with Split, even with newer stuff.
I know.
And you just got to give it to him. He's trying things still. Like what was the movie we watched that didn't like very much? The
Visit.
The Visit. Not a great movie.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
But he's trying something.
But it was still interesting. I mean, it's not like a write-off kind of movie.
No, I mean, like, don't have interest in watching it ever again. No. But like you saw that he was just trying something.
Yeah.
Instead of just making a run-of-the-mill thriller. Which is funny because he is such a thriller director.
Yeah.
But even still, all of his movies are so different. I mean, they do feel like Shyamalan. Mm-hmm. But it's just, his voice is clear even though he can do so many different things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's get past the first scene probably.
Well, can I say one more thing? Because I really don't want to forget. Just about like the ideology of the movie.
Okay.
So in the Q&A, he said that he actually was more of a TV guy than a comic book guy, so he would watch like cheesy TV. Mm-hmm. But what I really like about this movie, as opposed to some movies that comment on comic books, is it does come from a place of love, clearly. And there's still like points to be made, and there's interesting stuff to explore, but it is not a director or a screenwriter being like, I hate this thing, and I want to like, just for the sake of making it crazy or weird, I'm just gonna take this character, maybe for example, that you love, and make it like really gross.
Just
or
say
weird.
Joker.
I'm not saying Joker, but there are movies like that where there's like you can feel how the director behind the camera doesn't like the material they're dealing with, and this is like, well, he clearly loves comic books and heroes, and he still made like a prestigious movie, quote unquote, about superheroes.
Yeah.
So it's just very cool.
Yeah.
And I just think that's an important thing to mention about the movie. But next scene.
So after that, we are on the train.
We're on the
Bruce.
train.
And this is, again, a really long shot. It does start with him, like a child sitting in front of him is looking at him through the seats, in between the seats.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the shot is shown from the child's perspective, which I find interesting. And I feel like there was some video essay at some point about it that I can't remember, like, the reason behind it. I feel like one time someone explained how that was so utilized so well. Who cares at this point? But it's a lot of the camera just switching between David Dunn and this woman who sits next to him in between the seats.
Yeah.
Again, it feels so real. You see him, it's very intimate too. Mm-hmm. You see him taking off his wedding ring because the girl he finds her attractive. They start just talking, and she's a sports agent. Eventually he finds out that she's married, and she leaves her seat because he makes her uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's like, what kind of scuzzy guy is this? Like, how often is he removing his wedding ring?
Also good on her.
Oh, yeah. But, like, how often is he trying to hit on a girl? It kind of goes through your mind. But he also seems very sweet, or soft-spoken, I guess, is because he has a very subdued performance.
Another great M. Night, like, right away, we know what's going on with his marriage, and we haven't even seen his wife.
Yes.
But we get it. Already, it's like, I get this guy.
Yes.
And Because this movie's so character driven that kind of stuff is so essential to this movie having emotional payoffs.
Absolutely, and he's not a perfect person, like you just said. He doesn't have a perfect life.
Now in Glass, so I guess I am gonna spoil some stuff. So I hope you've seen these movies. But when we find out that Kevin's dad was on that train, did we see him, or was it just like footage that didn't show Kevin's dad?
Like in Glass when they do a flashback to a person.
Yeah.
We do see other people on the train. I don't recognize any of them as from Glass, so I kind of feel like that was just inserted because it was
okay.
It would be more convenient. I don't have an issue with it. That happens in comic books.
Oh,
all the time.
no. I think that's one of the coolest things.
I can see people being like, "Oh, of course."
Yeah.
But
when they turn the camera at one point and it looks at a guy who's wearing glasses, I was like, "Is that Kevin's dad?" I like kind of remember that, but I might be. We'll find out in a couple of days when we watch Glass.
Of course, we know that he had always wanted to make a sequel, but I don't think he had that character. I mean,
he didn't. He definitely.
Yeah.
Didn't.
So therefore, no, he's not in the train. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you want to for fun, yes, that guy is his dad.
Well, I'm just wondering if he reused some footage.
I don't remember that part.
Okay.
I feel like they made it pretty obvious in Glass when they do the flashback.
Yeah.
Rather than just cutting to that guy again, if that makes sense.
Well, let's just keep our eyes peeled for that.
Yeah.
When we get there.
So what I like during their conversation too, David and this woman, is the train is just you can tell that it's picking up speed as they're talking. Yeah. Like the lights are flickering a lot. They're not on a subway, they're on a train. Mm-hmm. And by the time she leaves, he's noticing that the train is moving really fast.
Yeah.
And we finally get some cuts to some other people on the train who are also noticing this. And then it's too late.
Yeah.
For anything. Train crashes. Everyone dies.
Except
but so after
2 people.
Do we immediately go to the hospital? Or
so
do we cut to Elijah?
What we see Joseph. And he's
right.
at home and he sees this train, and again, it's just a great shot. He runs into the other room and it says there's a post-it note that says Dad 422 Eastrail 177, and he connects the dots. Then we go to the hospital. Now this is a nice like you were saying, panels within panels.
Uh-huh.
So in the background we have David Dunn waking up from this horrible train accident.
Sitting up, not even hooked up to anything.
No. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, he has no like IV or anything.
Yeah.
And this doctor starts being like, "Where were you sitting on the train? What did you?" He's asking him all these questions because he's confused why he's alive.
Uh-huh.
And then in the foreground, kind of blurry, you can see that there's a body at the bottom of your screen,
and they're operating on it.
And you can hear the doot, doot, and it's kind of picking up.
And every
speed.
once in a while, it's like the chest of the body like hitches.
Yeah, and then eventually the doctor says, "Well, the reason I'm asking you these questions is for 2 reasons. 1, you were in this crazy accident and you don't even have a scratch on your body. 2, there are 2 survivors and it looks like we're about to lose the second one."
Yeah, and as he's saying that, blood
starts coming
spotting
out
on that person.
Yes, spotting.
And like at that point when that starts happening, the camera starts zooming in very slowly because
panning technically.
Panning, is that what it's called? It does that a lot in this movie, where it'll be like sitting in one spot for so long, and then once we're getting that dawn of realization, then the camera pans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is matched up with the realizations that he has.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. So David, when he walks out, this is like, how is everyone not bawling their eyes out in the theater at this point? Because he leaves to the waiting room where there are dozens of people there waiting to hear if their family member is dead or not.
And he's
which
the
they find out
survivor.
They are dead. So he's trying to see if his family came at all. Of course, Robin Wright, I even want to know her character's name, and Joseph are there. And her name is Audrey. But the son notices him first, and the kid is just an incredible actor. He really knows how to direct kids. Also, the casting is always really good for him too. Yeah. I think with children, because he uses a lot of children in his movies, and they're always so amazing.
Except The Visit. But that's maybe more personal preference.
Yeah, well, that kid's a really good actor.
Yeah.
It's not a good,
I don't think it's written well. Yeah,
but that kid is in Wildlife. He's an incredible actor.
That's the same kid.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he does have the chops.
So I think it's just the writing.
It's just always, here's a thing, side note.
Yeah.
If you're ever directing a movie and you feel the need to have someone rap, it's just always going to be a tough sell.
It's always uncomfortable.
Yeah, when they're not a good rapper, should I say? So because he's a kid, I mean, I love movies that have rap in them, but
No, yeah, we're not saying that. Yeah.
No, but when he's like a kid and he's 10 or something, and he's like, "Hey, guess what? One of my hobbies is I can rap," and then he raps, and you're like, "Oh, I hate looking at this."
It just feels uncomfortable for some reason.
Yeah,
but he got Abigail Breslin.
That's right.
And Signs.
And
great child actress.
No, not Kieran.
Rory in the same movie. Signs?
Yeah, they're brother and sister.
I just couldn't remember if that was the same one. But
that's another movie, and I think The Village and that movie, people are starting to change their opinions on them. And
good. Joaquin's in The Village too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because both of those movies are pretty good. And by pretty good, I mean Signs is like borderline masterpiece, and Village, I wouldn't quite put in masterpiece, but it's great.
Signs was very highly regarded.
I think like critically, not so much. I think audience-wise, everybody kind of liked it, but I think critically, people weren't as into it.
For The Village, I mean, say what you will, you can say that the twist is so stupid because it's so crazy. I love it.
It's pretty cool.
It's amazing. Anyway, so and this moment is when we see further him and his wife like don't really have a relationship, but you know that it's his wife.
Yeah.
Even showing the son making them hold hands, like we are a happy family, we're walking out of here a family.
Yeah.
And they can't even hold hands. Like, okay, this is not good. So then I think we cut to Elijah shown through a reflection of a TV screen.
As a child
with a broken arm.
Yeah.
With his mother talking to him like, you cannot be scared to live your life. Because she's like, this is the moment where if you decide to be scared, you're going to be scared for the rest of your life. And she makes him go outside to a playground because she gave him a gift.
Uh-huh. And what is that gift?
A comic book.
It's a comic book.
Another wild shot is when he opens the box and the comic book is upside down, and he turns the comic book so that he can read it, and the camera turns with him, and it's like the world makes sense. His world is no longer upside down.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
Also, something to mention is throughout this movie, there is a comic book from I think it's a real comic from Action Comics, and there's a character on it named like the Jangaroo
or something.
Jaguaro, but he looks like kind of a beast character, and if you know anything about Split, there's a villain who becomes the Beast. And I think that I don't think that was an intentional thing, but I think as he was writing Split, he kind of was like, oh, I can play on this idea.
Fun foreshadowing.
Yeah, very fun foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea that Elijah has is these comic books are like our last link to mythology. And of course, they've been commoditized and made for profit and stuff. But I think commercialized. There may be people that these stories are really about. Like, where would these originate if not from reality to some extent?
And he needs that to be true for himself because of his condition. He was born with this bone disorder where he has very low density in his bones. Basically, they're brittle and they break like paper. They're just like paper. That weak.
Yeah.
And he needs these things to be real because he finds himself so far on one spectrum. There has to be someone on the other extreme.
Yeah.
Because he considers himself in the another extreme spectrum.
Which, as far as like bringing a reality to the comic book and superhero, like when he says that there must be an opposite of me, I'm like, oh, I basically now believe in superheroes.
Yeah.
I'm like, that totally
That's
tracks
all I
for
need.
me.
Yeah.
Also, when his mom gives him the comic book, she says, they say this one has a surprise ending.
Yeah.
Which is, it's M. Night calling his shot, and apparently everyone was like, no. But when you watch it now, you're like, yes, you called your shot. That rules.
Yeah.
So then, actually, I think a little before that, Bruce Willis goes to the wake for everyone that died, and then he sees this card on his car that says limited edition, and in very comic booky narration or speaking font, he opens up and it says, how many days in your life have you been sick? Now, this is another thing. All the sick talk in this movie, it's like okay, this is probably someone that exists in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, it is just such a realistic thought, and it's so simple to go, if Superman was on Earth and you wanted to find him, like, maybe you would look for the lone survivor
What's crazy
in a situation.
too with David's character is so amazing is throughout the movie, and he even says that something has always felt off and wrong about him. Therefore, it has affected his relationships with people, especially of his wife and his son. Why him and his wife are on the brink of divorce. Because he's always distanced himself from people. And it's always been because he feels like he has not been adequate, or as if he's not doing the right thing. And he's not enough in any way. And throughout the movie, Elijah is trying to convince him that he is more above and beyond, to the point of you're like a god, like you have a calling, a supreme divine calling. And I think like being the protagonist and all that, I think a lot of people feel that way, where they go through life feeling like they're lost, they're aimless, they're not in the right place, and they can't, like, how do you find it? Well, a lot of it is just having faith in who you are. Mm-hmm. Base level.
I love it. Yeah,
so
you're right.
It's just like a really kind of poetic theme as well of his journey as a character.
See, don't you love it when there's a movie that's this good, and I can have some stuff to contribute, and you can have some stuff to contribute, and I didn't even think about the stuff you're talking about, and you didn't even think about the stuff I talked about, and we can just learn about it and just keep talking about how good it is. I love this
Meanwhile,
movie.
everyone has lost interest.
Oh no, this is gonna be.
I'm just kidding.
This is gonna be our greatest episode to date. I think I say that every time you make a joke like that. So. And speaking back to the mythology and having these links and realistic stuff, I mean, this story actually reminds me a lot of Stephen King.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because we talk about this all the time. Jordan and I love Stephen King. We're both slowly but surely, much faster than me, reading everything he's written. And he'll take something that's so...
I got the master of suspense.
Yeah. He'll take something that you go... something as simple as a monster under your bed. Every kid thinks that, but then he'll go, but what if somewhere in the world there actually is a monster under the bed? And when you're reading it, you just go, yeah, this is real. Like Pennywise has to be in a town somewhere feasting on fears. Mm-hmm. Like it only, by the time you finish one of his books and by the time you finish this movie, it's like, it's illogical to think that this isn't what's happening.
Yeah.
Because they take just enough, and then they twist it just enough.
Uh-huh.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So there's this great, this is my favorite Robin Wright scene. So her and David are sleeping in separate rooms. And she knocks on the door, and she says, hey, this is not going to affect anything, but I just have two questions for you. It's the middle of the night, And again, this is not going to affect anything. It's not going to...
She keeps saying that it's not going to affect how she feels.
It's just like, oh my gosh. This is like the most realistic dialogue and also the most realistic acting. Uh-huh. Although, fortunately, I've never been in this situation.
Yeah.
But, and she goes, have you ever been with anyone else? And he pauses for a little bit, and then he says, no. And I believe him. I don't think the movie's trying to make you think he doesn't, but it sounds like he's flirted with other people. But he also seems like someone who he probably couldn't go through with it.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
And she just immediately, like, she's
breaks down,
sad, but she's happy, and she's crying, but she's trying not to be. And she's like, I already said this won't affect me, see? But it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then she says,
wait, you're skipping ahead a lot.
Oh, this is in the notes.
Well, but before all of this, he's asking her how many days he's been sick. He does some research on if he's ever actually been sick. So he asks her, and she can't remember, but she's also like, I'm really tired. So that's probably just that. You're
right.
And he cannot remember. And he even goes, when he goes to work, he asks his boss, well, how many sick days have I taken? And his boss's response is, I get it. You want a raise. You haven't taken a sick day in the last 5 years you've worked here. I get it. So he learns that he's never, potentially has never been sick.
Yeah.
And
then he does visit Glass.
Yes.
But we kind of talked about everything that happens in that scene without mentioning that he went there.
Yeah, and that in that moment, David's kind of like, this guy's a crackpot. I'm not listening to this person. He's crazy. He believes in comic books way too much. And then is that kind of like where we go? I think we maybe get to this scene then.
Yeah, then we're at that, and then Robin Wright goes through all that stuff, and then she says, I would like to start new. I mean, when you go through something like you did with this train, it puts things into perspective. So if you would like to take me out on a date sometime, I would like that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say a word. The only word he says in this whole exchange is no to her asking if he's been with anyone. And
I'm assuming it's shock.
Yeah.
Because I think that you could get a very clear sense that both of them have just given up at this point and they can't really figure out how to get past, like what to do next. We do know he was on a train to interview for a new job.
Yeah.
In New York. So like pretty much they're about to just be done.
Yeah. Man, it's so good. So, yes, all of that happens. And then Elijah goes to David Dunn, who's working at the stadium as security. And he's bringing up questions like, well, if you haven't been sick, if you haven't been hurt, why would you choose a job where you're protecting people?
He's like, you could have done anything. You could have been a restaurant person. You could have been this kind of person. 10,000 reasons for any other kind of job, but you chose this. Yeah. Like, don't you think you have some kind of innate desire to protect people? To which David's like, I don't know.
Yeah. And then he's also talking about well, no, wait, what is yeah. So he also is like, while he's doing that, he's talking to him and he's walking through this line and he mentions that someone looks suspicious.
So start doing pat downs.
And Elijah says, why did you say this guy had a pat down? And he said, well, I did see in my mind's eye that he had a silver gun with like a black handle in his
Which is so
pocket.
Specific.
Yeah, it's so specific. And then that guy, before he gets pat down, he just takes off.
Yeah.
And then Elijah starts following him. And he has so much want and desire for this to be true that he
breaks most of the bones on his body. He's falling downstairs.
And it's crazy.
But what's so crazy about that moment is so he breaks so many of his bones, but he does see that the guy has a silver gun with a black handle. Yeah. And the look on his face is, oh my gosh, not crying out in pain. He is in awe.
Yeah.
That this is probably true.
Also, the wig work for him, I mean, it's always on point.
Because he uses the same wig person for every movie.
Yeah, he has a wig person.
Yeah.
And they tried to form him after it's a very famous
Frederick Douglass.
That's it. That is the one. Yeah, so they based him off of him. I don't need that wig kind of on him. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I did just find out that M. Night did have originally with this movie, he was gonna have David Dunn face off with Kevin Wendell Crumble
in this movie.
So yeah, that would have been like the climax. He already
did have an idea for a character.
Yeah, and that guy was like stealing teenage girls, and that was gonna be like the villain.
And then he was like, hold on, park the brakes. I got way too much character things to explore.
But I did find this thing, and M Night's cool with it. He's like, yeah, that counts. That
guy.
When he runs into the woman at the end of the movie and she's like yelling at her son, that the son is Kevin.
Yeah, okay. That's fine with me.
Split. Yeah.
That's fine with M. Night. That's fine with me.
He definitely didn't plan for that because in this original script, he was going to have Kevin as an adult fighting him in this movie. But,
okay,
that's kind of a fun thing. So
I'm glad he didn't, because then we wouldn't have gotten 2 other movies.
I know. So now should we skip to M. Night is in this movie?
Yeah.
And
well, hold on. So he brushes that guy, and he sees a gun in his mind. And Elijah suggests to cultivate that skill, develop it. Huh?
he actually
That's
doesn't
cool.
brush him, but
He touches him.
he just I don't think he touches
He has
the
to
gun
touch
guy.
people to know that they're maybe not great.
I just don't remember him touching the gun guy.
I do.
Because okay. All right.
Like when you walk by someone and you brush past them.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Let him touch him, okay? And he suggests that that he should develop the skill. So he is at his job. David's at his job, and he lets people brush by him. And one person brushes by him, and he sees this person dealing drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's M. Night. Which, if you don't know this, he likes to appear in all of his movies if he can.
Now, this to him, so he then goes up to M. Night, and he pats him down, and he finds no drugs. And what's kind of interesting, and I like it, he just lets you figure it out yourself. They never go back to that or explain why he didn't have drugs.
Yeah.
But I think what you should glean from that is that he didn't necessarily, like when he has a vision, it wasn't necessarily like something that just happened. It could have happened a long time ago. I don't know if it can be future.
Well, he hasn't, because it has just now been suggested to him that he should develop it, which that means he is just now thinking about how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this to him convinces him that he doesn't have any power because he was wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when you finish the movie, it seems like with the murderer at the end, the guy in the orange jumpsuit, that had maybe happened many, many hours before, days before, probably. So that makes me think that this just means this M. Night character has been doing this consistently in the world.
Yeah. I like to think of it as when he gets a vision of someone, it's like base level shows him that they're a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
They're guilty of something, but the win is not we're not sure about.
Yeah.
It's just that we know that they're bad.
Yeah. And fortunately, he'll pay off that character in Glass in kind of a over the top way, but you go, whatever, you earned it.
Oh, I don't remember.
He does.
But cool.
He's in the other two movies.
When he walks into a security thing and he talks about like, yeah, okay, his
He's
past.
like, you saved me from a life of drugs.
That's right.
And it's like,
that.
okay.
I don't know, whatever. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him to be in the movie.
So then David gets a call from the principal, and of Joseph's school goes there.
What did Joseph get in an accident, or did he start a fight?
He stopped a kid who was picking on someone else because he thought maybe he inherited these powers.
Yes, and previous to this, there was a scene of of David lifting weights, and Joseph is present, and Joseph keeps adding weights, or he adds weights and does not tell his dad.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to skip that.
Basically, they discover he can lift crazy amounts of weight. He lifts up to like around 350 pounds.
The score, come on.
So
Joseph's acting in that scene.
Incredible. I'm so
crazy.
happy. Well, whatever. Anyway.
I know what you're going to say, but you have to listen to our episode on Glass to hear it.
Yeah, but so his son is just a childlike wonder too. It's just so convinced his dad's a superhero. Like also he was present when he first met Elijah. So it's like, maybe my dad is a superhero.
Okay, so a couple things. One, like every kid has that, like, I bet my dad could beat up your dad.
Exactly.
So
that kid literally said that to him in the waiting room. Yeah.
Which I imagine was probably used as a joke in a trailer, as like the last thing before it said what it was rated. And then, so there's that. And then I think also what it gets into is just this payoff that we'll get in Glass when he's working for his dad and helping him. He's like the guy at the computer with the superhero. And just that whole idea of you want your dad to be this person you always look up to and this perfect person, but if you could help him too. And
he wants to be a part of it.
To have the fantasy that your dad is a superhero is in itself, that's like a fantasy, even like maybe one notch below me being a superhero.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, especially at that age, your dad is the coolest person to you. And they reveal it well that there's a moment where David even says, like, Joseph, we were just this is right after this, but like we were just starting to become friends. Like, so clearly he's always felt like he not very distant from his son.
Yeah.
When he's at the principal's office, he even says, like, this is kind of Audrey's thing, his wife. And she's like, what, the school thing? And he said, the Joseph thing. And it's like, okay, he's been like pretty absent a lot more than we even know.
Yeah.
During this. So,
but he learned some very vital information in this.
Yeah.
So, one, he got hurt. Well, he learned this earlier, but he got hurt when he was in high school and he was in a car accident with Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
And then college. Two, he learns in this scene that he had forgotten that as a child, he almost drowned in a pool at the school and they had to change the rules and stuff. And she says, we kind of let the kids even rumor about the kid dying because it prevents them from being unsafe at the pool.
I couldn't like totally understand.
Oh, yeah, that's what she said.
Okay. Because it sounded like she said a kid died, but then I was like, but no, I thought it was him.
No.
So I just missed like a word.
Yeah, it's just the kids will say like, some kid died here, and the teachers don't correct them because it gets them to behave.
Gosh, when she starts talking about it and Bruce Willis just like his tearing up hardcore. Oh my gosh, that is crazy.
Well, and there is such a fine line between Bruce Willis phoning in a performance and being subtle.
Oh, he's being subtle.
But he's so good in this movie. But he's someone who for the past 20 years, people who love Bruce Willis are like, man, I just wish you'd do good work again, buddy. Instead of getting paid like $1 million a day to be in some movie that's like basically so that a billionaire can keep their Russian account open or something like that. Like these movies that just don't even exist. So good in this.
He is.
So then next scene, Joseph finds David's gun and he goes to the table. It's all one shot. And we're going back and forth from Robin Wright to Bruce Willis to his son. And he's saying, you don't believe, but if I shoot you right now, you'll believe because you won't die. And I love how he handles it. It feels like he's forced to actually be a parent.
Yeah, and Robin Audrey at this point, she has also met Elijah because she's a physical therapist.
Yeah. And
he told her everything that he has told David, which is like super creepy that he sought out his wife to talk to her about just this really weird stuff. It's just not, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And, but she's a part of this. And so with Joseph doing what he's doing, she's understanding why. I just like that he put that in the story as well, because I feel like a lot of the times it's like she's just now finding all this out, and that's going to tarnish their relationship, and they were just starting to get it back. It's like
it feels scared. Less romantic comedy.
Sure, it's like you could have just told me.
Yeah,
but anyway, so he starts. David starts like yelling. Like an angry parent.
And he's like, I'm going to be mad at you if you're going to be in big trouble, buddy.
And I think,
buddy.
I thought it was very interesting too, where he said, okay, yeah, shoot me and I will live, but I'm leaving you. That's interesting, like reverse psychology or something almost, like using on his kid, like interesting parenting. And,
It is funny, though, that he has been obviously an absent parent, and the moment he starts parenting is at gunpoint.
That it took gunpoint to get him to start parenting. That's not great. But, he gets Joseph to put down the gun.
Yes. And
I also really liked it, too, when they were leaving the school, and his son is talking to his son about it, and he's just like, Joseph, you need to knock it off. I'm not special. I'm just a normal guy. And his son's just crying, and he's like, but you are.
Yeah.
And the scene just ends.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The son wants it.
Yeah.
So then Robin Wright and Bruce Willis go to dinner. And there was this thing, and I don't know if I maybe would have noticed it, but probably not. So David Dunn, when we see him, it's very cold and blue colors. And as the movie progresses, it gets warmer and warmer, more yellow, more orange.
Wow.
More green, too,
that.
obviously, but like the actual lighting on him.
Okay.
And in this scene, especially at the dinner table, it's very warm.
Uh-huh.
It's a nice restaurant. It's not like a dark restaurant. It's very like bright and open as they're relearning each other.
They're
and
talking about their
discovering each other.
favorite colors. Like they're from base level. That's their relationship, which is
Yeah.
very sweet.
Now, the other thing is, when we first meet Elijah, he's more warm and the colors are orange and stuff like that, in addition to purple, of course. And by the end of the movie, he is shot in like frigid blue color because he's losing his humanity. The other is gaining their humanity.
Oh my gosh, movies are so cool.
Well, and that are those touches that take a movie from, this is just,
This is
a
a good
Netflix
movie.
original movie of the week to this is like a
Masterpiece.
an artist made this.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
this is another shot where we start very far back. We're seeing everything like other diners at the restaurant. And
Yeah.
then it's at some point when Audrey says, "Do you know that you're an absent person?" Then the camera starts panning in. And David is saying like, like we're not, come on, like this is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like this isn't part of the game. She's like, "But this is part of the game. Do you know that you're an absent person? And that you hold us at a distance?" Like, it's just so good.
And while that's happening, we're cutting to Elijah. And this is when the
Yes.
colors on him are getting, it's like they're at their peak cool for him and they're at the peak warm for Bruce. And so cutting back and forth, your eyes are like, whoa.
Yeah.
And he's at this comic book shop and he's just sitting there completely blank stared, like catatonic.
Why does he like that?
Well, I think he's just upset at what's going on. And he heard his wife told him, Audrey told him, like, no, we were in an accident in high school. And
So
then
he's starting to potentially doubt that yeah.
and David told him I was sick. I almost died of pneumonia.
I wonder too, if part of that catatonia kind of thing is him realizing if he is wrong, how many people have died.
Oh, I
For
never
that
even
reason.
thought about
like,
that.
Like
Probably
that's starting to get to him, maybe.
Yeah. Or he's thinking like, I gotta go kill a bunch of people again.
Start from square one.
I thought I had him.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there catatonic. The comic book shop owner's like, dude, get out of here. And he's pushing his wheelchair around and Elijah's making it crash.
Kind of throwing a fit, I would characterize it.
And then a comic book falls on his lap and he holds it up and he says, I'll take this one. And then we see a message machine. Now,
Wait, what was the comic book again? Do you remember?
I don't remember what it was, but I'm going to talk about what's in it because he mentions that.
Yes, okay.
So in this, another thing for this movie, they did not use a sound library, which is very common in movies. When you're getting ready to put all your sound in, like him falling down, you'll just load up, glass breaking and include it. M. Night was like, no, sound guy, let's make our own sounds.
What does that mean?
So that means
Like footsteps?
that means you're not going to hear like the Wilhelm scream in this because all the sounds in this movie, from like background noise to footsteps, all that, were made for this movie.
Why?
They just wanted it to be something that not even subconsciously you would connect with other movies.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it is funny. It's hard to catch, but sometimes, and I think it's more like people in the industry notice this kind of stuff. I don't know that I've really noticed except for
The Wilhelm scream and the cat noise.
yeah. But there are stuff, like cat noises where you go, yeah, that I've heard that in 1,000 movies and TV, but instead recording a new cat doing it and getting a new sound. So this whole movie has a completely different sound library. They made their own, but this is all leading up to, they just took a lot of effort on the sound. So David and his wife get home and there's a message on the message machine and they click it and it's Elijah. And it's subtle, but it starts off and it's that muffled message machine sound. And he says, I got this comic book issue, and in it, there is the coalition of evil. And they spend all their time finding heroes and trying to figure out what their weaknesses are. So water is your weakness. It's your kryptonite. And as he's saying this, the sound is getting clearer and clearer until he says the line, "You hearing me, David?" And it's crystal clear as if Samuel L. Jackson is in the same room as him. Mm-hmm. That's another like color touch where you're just like, that's an artist who made this. Now, another thing I want to say, so he mentions the secret coalition and how they find superheroes and they try to bring them down. Is that not a perfect tee up for the twist in glass when you find out.
I thought we weren't doing twists.
Well,
shut it.
No, I just have to say it because I might forget in that episode.
You're not going to forget.
Well, the Secret Coalition, okay? Don't let me forget,
audience.
audience.
I didn't forget about it. That's
cool.
all you're trying to say.
It's cool. So then we have the flashback to the car accident. I talked a lot. Please, take over.
And so flashbacks right after that, like he's remembering it.
In this scene, somewhere around here.
Yeah, I guess we're taken back in time to the car accident. And it's Bruce is totally fine, but Audrey is still in the car, and he pries her out of the car, like inhuman strength, pries her out. And she's injured, and a person is asking him if he's injured, and he doesn't really answer, but it's just like, no, he was not injured. Because earlier in the movie...
But it looks like he's about to say yes.
Well,
like
I think he does, because earlier in the movie, Elijah just is like, there's no way you were injured in that. You chose love in that moment. In that moment, because he's like, he said, like, a career in football, which he would have had, is, a moment. But love is forever. So he chose love, because earlier we also learned that Audrey was not interested in being with him if he wanted to do football professionally, because she was just not interested in that lifestyle. But David chose her over that. And he doesn't even doesn't even seem resentful for it. And I think a big part of it is because he even knows that football wasn't everything to him. Like, it didn't answer why he still felt weird.
Right.
Therefore, he chose love, and it's as if that only lasted so long for him. Eventually, it does come back, you know. But that's the flashback.
That's the flashback. Very important flashback. And then now he's like, so in his brain, he's pretty convinced. So he talks to Elijah, and Elijah says, well, now you need to go somewhere and test your abilities, basically.
And then we get the sweet, sweet theme song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that was a bad impersonation. And folks, I don't think I'm going to have a fun song to put on this episode, so I'm sorry. I just haven't thought of anything, and
That's okay, man.
I want to make sure they're not the greatest things in the world, but I want them to be fun and kind of cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like, really? He did that Batman theme? That's kind of fun. But I don't know if I'll have one for this, but I still might try something. It'd be fun to just...
try. They already know.
That's true. They would know by now. So he's in the station and he's touching people. And as he's having flashes of them doing bad. And he sees a couple people who it's like, okay, maybe he needs to pursue this person. And then this man in an orange jumpsuit taps him, and he sees the man walk up to this home and knock on the door.
Wait, just remind me, because there was one person, the guy in plaid, like yellow.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember what he did?
I believe he raped a girl.
No, that was the college kid.
Yeah.
There was a guy before the college kid.
He drove by someone and like hit them.
Oh, did a hate crime.
Yes. And he had like a bottle and hit someone on the side of the street.
I just couldn't remember.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, oh, maybe he's going to get this guy. But then he sees that this guy in the orange jumpsuit, again, cool. It's a color. It's like the others, and all of them have really bright colors. So you're kind of like, it could be any of these because villains have colors. So the guy goes up to the suburban home, knocks on the door. The dad answers, and he goes, I like your home. Can I see it? And the guy's like, no. And then it shows him like shoot the dad.
Yeah.
And then go inside the house. And that's what he sees. And then Bruce knows.
Follows him home.
Yeah, and he's following him. And of course, it's raining hard. Mm-hmm. And it's that great cinematic rain.
And he's wearing that poncho that's like his uniform.
And a great thing about the poncho for you trivia fans out there is the costume designer. She even said, and I was looking and I couldn't really notice.
I couldn't really notice any difference.
But she said throughout this sequence, the
actual sequence?
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, it's not the movie. It's like this scene.
Oh. Okay.
His poncho becomes less poncho and more cape / superhero-y.
Oh.
Pretty cool. But she even said it's so subtle you wouldn't notice.
Yeah,
it's supposed to just like let your mind know that he's
subliminal.
Heroic. Yeah, subliminal.
I mean, he dons the cape. Literally, he's donning the cape in this sequence. Yeah.
So he goes in, and It's a pretty tense sequence.
It is terrifying because M. Night is a master of suspense. So it has an even extra edge of terrifying to me. All of his movies do that have any element of creepy. He just makes it a little too real.
Well, it's really weird because this scene, like the very first shot in this movie, I always remember that it's more graphic than it is.
Yeah.
And
but
same
it's all
thing
the power
with,
of
like,
suggestion.
Pretty much Split. I always think of that movie as like, how did that get away with a PG-13? And then I watch it and I'm like, oh, it feels R, but it's a PG-13
It's all power
movie.
of suggestion. I mean, in Split, he's eating somebody, but we don't see it.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just inferred that he might be.
Now that you mention that, is he our favorite cannibal instead of Hannibal?
Well, we'll have to deliberate in the next episode. So he is walking through the house and he sees the dead father in the basement. He goes up to the children's room and finds the children tied up in the bathroom, unties them, goes to the master bedroom, finds the mom, is still trying to find the guy. The guy ambushes him and pushes him off the balcony and into the pool. Uh-oh, that's a lot of water.
Yeah.
So he's drowning, but the kids save him.
Which is cool because I never remember who saves him, and I'm going, did Elijah follow him? I don't really get how he would have thought to follow him.
I couldn't remember either. I thought like the bad guy was trying to push him down with the pole, and then he was going to grab it and like pull himself up.
Yeah.
But it was the kids. It was the kids every time.
But the kids get out there, and then he goes upstairs, and he puts him in this chokehold, and it's just one shot. Would have been probably a nightmare to shoot that scene over and over and over again. Oh my gosh, I kept
thinking about the stunt people like that. They definitely got bruises from that.
Yeah, but that was Bruce in that scene.
You think so?
Yeah, no, we saw his face.
He got bruises. He's denting the walls.
Yeah.
That's how big of or heavy or strong of a person he is.
And then the score is unreal in this section. Of course, I can't describe it. You have to just watch it, but it's just crazy.
It's just an emotional score of the movie.
Yeah,
because like we said earlier, this is a man who did not feel like he had a place in this world, and we were watching him discovering his place in the world.
Yeah.
And I want to mention before we continue this part, when he was at dinner with Audrey, she asked him, "When did you think that we wouldn't make it?" And he answered, "I had a bad dream one night and I didn't want to wake you up so you could tell me it was okay." Back to this scene. So he strangles the guy. Everyone's safe. He unties the mom. The mom is dead. I always find it interesting that the mom is dead.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's just trying to continue to make this movie feel very realistic.
Yeah.
As if like he almost wants you to forget that there are superheroes at play.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
Because he didn't have to do that, but he did. So he goes home after the kids are saved and the bad guy is vanquished, and he lifts his wife into bed with him, and the shot, it looks like she's floating.
Yeah, up the stairs, and
so
she's
great.
Just looking at him like he's the person she married.
And he just snuggles her and says, "I had a bad dream." And I just want to cry. And she tells him it's going to be okay.
How did people not like this movie when it came out?
I don't know.
It's so good. It hits everything you need in a movie.
I know. And then to further make this
is the best scene. This is emotional. The best scene.
So it's the next morning. Parents, they're up and they're making French toast, and you can tell that the spark is back. They are
and I
loving.
think Joseph sees that.
Yes, the kid comes in
downstairs.
and he has this look like, "What's happening?" But he just sits down quietly. Mom starts making him breakfast, and David slides the paper very quietly to his son, and he's like, "Read the paper."
And there's a sketch of this figure who saved these two kids.
A comic book sketch, really.
Yes.
Which is very obvious.
Yeah.
But fun obvious.
So cool.
And the kid reads the headline, looks at his dad, and his dad just nods.
I'm getting chills.
And the kid is just crying, and I'm like, I'm crying too.
And he does that like palm wipe on his
but David just holds the finger up like don't tell mom.
Yeah.
This is just between you and me. And the kid is just like, yeah.
Which just sets up perfectly Glass.
Oh my gosh. It is so emotional.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And by then you're like, well, okay, so the movie's over. No. We've just had the whipped cream. There's the ice cream. There's some M&Ms, whatever other toppings you want. We have the whipped cream. But there's one missing ingredient, and that's that cherry on top.
Yep. And this movie's going on for a while. And I think, let's say you've never seen this movie and you've seen Marvel and you're just now watching this movie. You are conditioned to think, was that really the big showdown? We didn't even know who the bad guy was.
Yeah.
I can totally see people feeling that way. But so, it's like the movie has to be almost over, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. It is. So it goes to the art gallery, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And
we see the mother of Elijah Price.
We see the mother. And what does she say?
Aged up. And she's saying, like, I'm so proud of my son and stuff. And she talks about some mythology of superheroes.
Well, this is what she says. One, she takes pride in her son's work, which is very
I remember
sweet.
what she says. But
they're looking at a specific piece of art, and she's talking about the eyes of the villain. Like, the eyes are, like, a certain way.
Large.
They're large.
They're large,
Thank you. Well, so why are they large?
So she's saying that it shows that the character is like out of place or something like that. Maybe he knows too much, or she says something to that degree, which leads her to say that Elijah always talks about how they're the brawny villains, the ones you fight and stuff, and she goes, but the arch nemesis are always the ones that beat them with their brain.
Yeah.
She sets that up, and you're like, okay, cool, whatever. And then David goes into the back, and he's talking to Elijah.
And Elijah says, well, it's like, so you did it? And David said, yeah. And he's like, then this is where we shake hands. They shake hands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And David sees what Elijah has done. He has orchestrated these recent natural disasters. Well, these recent disasters, a hotel fire where everyone died in the fire.
Uh-huh.
I think there was some kind of bomb or explosion, another thing, I can't remember. Over 100 people die. He orchestrates a plane crash.
Plane crash, yeah.
And then
it shows him go into the
train 177, and he does something that causes the train crash. And he said, out of all of those, there's only he's been listening for one thing, for a sole survivor, untouched. And when he heard that happened with the train, he knew he found his counterpart.
Yep.
And he says this quote that is just like so profound, where he's like, the scariest thing in the world is not knowing what your place is.
And now I know mine.
And now I know mine because he found David.
Crazy.
And it was just like, can we have 3 more hours of this movie, please? Just talking about this?
And M. Night says, how about 3.5 more hours of this movie?
Thank you.
Yeah, and then the one thing we were discussing last night that's interesting is that he uses like cards to say like David Dunn went on, freeze frame cards, and I just think that's like the only thing about the movie that's aged poorly.
Yeah,
and almost like if M. Night ever said, "Hey, I'm gonna do, the M. Night cut of the entire trilogy," I would bet he would cut those out.
Yeah, the only reason I think it was kept in is because what we know is David Dunn, what happens in his life, and then with Elijah, he was committed to a mental institution. The only reason I think is so that we know that the bad guy didn't win.
Yeah.
Because at this time, this was not connected to anything. This is a whole original thing, and for it to be inspired by superheroes, and for them to not even win.
Yeah.
Even during that time, I think would not sit well with people.
Yeah.
So I do understand like why he did it. And it's just like, it does kind of suck because we have 20 years or so until Split. And we were talking last night, if these were all made in quicker succession after each other, this would never have been in the movie.
Yeah. And I would argue just the cards.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Not the
story,
ending. Not the
and
ending.
Not the plot. Because it's a perfect ending.
No, it is.
And I like what happens.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, could you not tell that we love this movie?
Yeah.
It's so good. And I just love, well, no, I save that for later. Yeah, it's so good. I don't even know what else to say. It's just so good.
Oh my gosh, it's just so good, like you said.
Well, if you enjoy our show, one thing we'd ask that you do is go to www.patreon.com/Micah McCaw. That's MICAHMCCAW. There's a link in the show notes. and sign up for $3 and you can get one extra episode a month. And on the one extra episode a month, we cover like bonus movies that might like we're going to be doing the 1960s Batman, or we'll sometimes do some other ones, but we also mostly cover movies that only have 2 sequels because, as you know,
one sequel.
I'm sorry. As you know, in this show, we do 3 or more.
Also, write a review and rate.
Please, yeah.
Let us know
rate and write a review.
What your favorite Shyamalan movie is, or why you don't think he's recovered as a filmmaker.
Yeah, if you think that.
You're dead wrong, but you can say why.
And for you patrons and future patrons, I misspoke because I forgot about the lovely thing called the Oscars. So this month, we will not be coming out with the Batman 1960 episode. That's going to be next month. This month, we're coming out with the Oscars 2021, where we're going to talk about our picks and movies we like this year. So if you want to hear us talk about movies that are not connected to a franchise and just the state of the movie industry, that's only on Patreon, and that's going to be a good episode. And it probably is already out by now because we try to put it out the first Wednesday, so it probably came out 2 days ago. But as of right now, we still have 2 that we want to see before we record that episode. So thank you so much for listening. Next week, we're going to talk about 2016's Split, starring James McAvoy and Anya Taylor-Joy. We get to talk about her. Ooh-wee. I hope you have a seatbelt because you're going to need to strap in for that next one. Let's go.